able to move the machine and the signage simultaneously, which has been a problem that we've experienced in the past, where we're kind of stuck with a single location for those when we move them around. So then we have to figure out how to add signage retroactively to a new space. Kind of ditto with the information desks. These desks are movable and they've got the signage built into them rather than suspended from the ceiling above them, which has been our typical approach. Our end cap signage is going to follow a general template so that we can change these dynamically. What we see is that at SPL, we shift collections around a lot based on customer need and interest and size of collections. We try to keep things dynamic. So we opted for an end cap signage piece that could be readily changeable in-house. And in addition to this, there's going to be some experiential graphics also on the end caps, but we're still working through some of the details on that. But what you see here is, in general, the high-level category followed by some of the details down below, depending on what's appropriate for the collection. We also have our code signage, which is, the boring stuff that just identifies what room you're looking at. So we see a couple of different treatments here. One is for the public and one is for staff spaces. So for public spaces, we also included the branch's distinct color. Each branch that we have will have its own color that fits into the overall palette of the signage program. And in this case, we're looking at the Hive, which is this bright yellow. Inside the branches, we are utilizing this vinyl on glass consistently across all of the different programming and meeting spaces. And I'm showing you a couple of different ones here. The one across the top is the Shadle event space. The one down in the bottom is the Liberty Park event space. And next to that is an example of what this kind of frosted glass treatment actually looks like in the real world. So right now we're dealing chiefly with drawings, and we haven't seen these things actually attached, but that's a negative version of what this thing will actually look like. What you'll notice also with the Shadle event space is we've integrated some experiential graphics into the vinyl treatment. So what you're looking at right there is a street map of the Shadle neighborhood that has been integrated into this vinyl that attaches to the windows. And we've done that in a couple of different places, both in Shadle and in other branches as well. Moving on from there to the experiential graphics, we've got a number of different mural type things that are going to be going in. Some of them are I guess the Hive is really the standout here. So for every other location, we really zeroed in on sense of place. And we tried to integrate the personality and identity of that region of the city into the experiential graphics. For the Hive, things are kind of different, so it's kind of livelier. You see this arrow concept that is revealed all throughout the Hive. The arrows around the Hive logo here are repeated on each of the studio rooms as well. On the left side here, you see an image that is going to be a mural in Liberty Park. And this is an actual photograph from Liberty Park. So our consultants, Helvetica, had a professional photographer go out to Liberty Park in order to capture some of these iconic images that we could then repeat by kind of adding treatments to the visual images that would make them more abstract and art-like, but also mirroring their environment. This is another example of the experiential graphics in Liberty Park. You see this topographic map of the park that is repeated both in the mural and in the vinyl on glass down here that will be attached to the quiet reading room. This is another great example in Liberty Park of the photograph of the actual park being rendered into a graphic, a modern treatment of a graphic. So in this case, you see the image of the columnar basalt that has then been rendered into a large-scale graphic that will fit on the inside of the curved meeting room space. Just shifting over to Hilliard, these are to be determined still. We're working on them, but we're trying to harken back to Hilliard's history as the way to connect it to its sense of place. So we see some abstract Andy Warhol style trains, as well as a historic picture of the Hilliard neighborhood down there, where these are kind of placeholder concepts that we're currently working through, but it should give you an idea of where we're trying to go with these different murals. And that is the signage in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions for me that I could answer?
Yeah, I have a question. The signage that we're going to use for the Salish name for the stage on the 3rd floor, is that going to be in a similar kind of format and treatment as the rest of the signs, or are we thinking that we'll do something different for those?
Ideally, it will stay in the same theme as the rest of the branch, and so you'll see. We have not gotten to the design of like the specific stage names and stuff beyond stage signage, I should say, beyond the code signage. So that stuff is still to be designed. But yes, it should be in the same vein.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions on the monument signs.
Yeah.
Where are they going to be? Are they going to be at the parking entrance or near the actual entrance of the library?
So for each of the monument signs, the key purpose is visibility from the roadway. So in most of the cases, it's somewhere near the entrance to the parking lot. In the cases where it's not, is where you see those additional parking signs, like at Shadle and downtown and Hilliard. But in general, yeah, they're visible from the road and they identify the branch for passing motorists.
And the other question is, does Central Library get a monument sign?
Does Central Library get a monument sign? I think, gosh, Amanda, can you remind me? I can't even remember now.
Central Library does not get a monument sign because the footprint of the Central Library doesn't allow for one. So instead, you'll see that really large lighted marquee sign on the Lincoln Main corner and a parking sign on the back side to indicate access to the parking lot and a library sign above the door on the north side entrance. But that's the only location that could not accommodate a monument sign.
And on that picture we had of the marquee sign, was the word central, did it say Central Library or just library?
Yeah, so when you're continuing down Lincoln, you see the word central along the marquee sign. And as you're going on Main, you see library. So there's a couple of key points where you can see both, but ordinarily you will see one or the other.
All right. Any more questions for Karis? Thank you, Karis. And thank you. Penny, is Matt on with us now?
Yep, he gave me the hi sign.
Okay, excellent. Well, Matt, then we are ready to hear from you on the bond construction update.
All right. Well, things are progressing quite well. I was just thinking we're about a month left of construction before we turn into the closeout phase, which basically commences with substantial completion. And so next week at Shadle, they're going to start doing a punch list, which will be walking around the building, making a list of things that need to be fixed or completed. And that's kind of the first step towards the substantial completion process. And then a few weeks, about a month from now, we'll be doing the same thing at Liberty and Hive. And so that's good news. It's really fun to see how much has progressed out there. I was just out at the Hive earlier today, and the parking lot is paved. The building exterior is done. There's yellow paint on the exterior and the interior. The sign is up. It's just really coming together well. And it's the same with Liberty, Shadle, and Hilliard as well. So projects are moving along quite well, and we're getting to the point where we're starting to think about moving new stuff into the buildings that's owner provided. as Penny mentioned earlier. So it's an exciting time right now.
Excellent. All right, does anybody have any questions for Matt? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the quarterly performance report. Shiloh, I believe you're going to share that with us.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So I think you have the sheet, but I'll share my screen as well. And pretty similar story to what we've had all year. So first, if you're looking at it digitally, this is, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so this is a hyperlink, if I can get it to work. That will take you to a larger report that you can explore as you wish. It's always there, and it has a table there as well. So once it's open over here. So this has all of the reports, but I'm just going to go back to the summary for now. So yeah, the first thing with this quarter is that gate count is not super reliable because branches were unplugging their gates a little bit just because of shuffling around, and our computer sessions count is also not reliable, I think because of something with Envisionware. And then curbside, which we have been reporting on, we have begun to shift away from that, which is good news because we're moving out of COVID lockdown. So just at the top, circulation is overall down because of the decrease in physical circulation. But again, an increase in digital as we've seen pretty consistently. And you can see if you look at, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but Q1 is the gray here. And if you look at Q4, which I'll get to at the end, but pretty similar to Q4 2020. We've had a decrease in new card holders, active households, again, kind of because of our pandemic, decrease in Wi-Fi and computer usage, decrease in gates, and then the curbside is there. But I think right now the more useful thing to look at is our changes from Q4 2020. So we've seen a little bit of a dip in physical circulation. That's kind of just the trend that we've seen throughout, that physical circulation is going down, but digital circulation is going up. There's been an increase in new card holders since Q4, increase in Wi-Fi and computer sessions, pretty large because we've begun to provide more and more computer use in branches. An increase in physical gate count, even though the count has been off, so that's encouraging, and then a little bit of a decrease in virtual gate count, which is just website views, and that just varies. I don't know why. I would imagine people are sick of looking at websites if I were to just make something up. So that is all for a quick summary. Does anyone have questions about any of that?
All right, thank you, Shiloh.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the chairman's report, and there is no chairman's report. So we will move on to the executive director's report. Andrew?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying what we're reporting on with all these facilities and, you know, getting down to some of those details of the signage. And for those of you joining us this week with the tours, you'll be able to see even more of the progress that we've made. And, you know, I didn't want to let this go unsaid, but Amanda and Karis have, you know, really done a huge uplift with that signage. So a lot of credit goes to their work on that end. As well as Amanda was also great help in choosing furniture, and she's been really making sure that the brand is leading throughout everything that we're doing. So, you know, when things are all final and done, if you like it, it's all Amanda. If you don't like it, just look at me. No, she's really done a great job in spearheading all that sort of stuff. So thank you, Amanda. As far as the report goes, I have submitted one as part of the packet. We are re-engaging in trying to determine our 24/7 kiosk locations. Paul Chapin is really leading the charge on this. A reminder, these won't be the same machines that we have at West Central. We went out for bids for new vendors for all of our self-service stuff, and MK Solutions is going to be providing that product for us. It'll be different functionality, but essentially the same concept of it's kind of like a red box. It's going to give materials out, and it's going to increase the convenience, throughout the city. We are targeting some areas in the city. One would be Foothills Drive in Nevada. The other would be Shiloh Hills. Latah Valley, Eagle Ridge area is another area that we're targeting. And in Northwest Spokane, we're looking at areas around the VA hospital. So we've got some promising potential partners in there. Nothing official at this point, but Paul is working his magic to make sure that we can really fulfill what we promised with this technology. You're going to start seeing more and more programmatic stuff that's being released. Things like our artist residency program at the Hive. Amanda will probably share some information about that just as part of the communications report. But these are going to be opportunities for individuals or teams, artists, crafters, musicians, makers, writers, to really share in their craft. It's a free space for folks. And the only thing that we're asking of them is that they share in some sort of public program, and actually be there at the space, so it's being utilized. Eva Silverstone's heading up that effort, so thank you for her. The other thing that you might have seen in the paper is our new partnership with Startup Spokane was recently announced. This has been head up by, I don't know, you might have heard of him, Mark Pond, national award-winning business librarian. He got this award before we started doing this partnership, so I don't know what they're going to do next year. I don't know if there's a two-time award winner in the history of this, but he's really trying to get this. I have not seen a partnership like this in library land. And we are really lucky to have Mark as part of our staff. We're also really lucky to have an organization like GSI and Startup Spokane that sees the value in what the library offers. So we're setting the bar pretty high with this partnership, and it's going to lead to more great things. Mark and Startup Spokane, I think that they're smart enough to be flexible in their approach, and they'll be able to shift based on what's needed by the community. But they've got a really solid beginning to that partnership. So thank you, Mark, for getting that off the ground. As part of my report going forward too, I really want to share briefly what the organization has been doing around diversity, equity, and inclusion, as a way to also honor the land acknowledgement that we've incorporated as part of our agenda. The work that we're doing with DEI furthers that connection. What that group has been doing is we've been working on developing a mission statement for that group, so we really know what the point of the group is, and we'll be able to measure what success is for that group. So we're taking our time with it, which I think is a good thing, because we want it to be meaningful. We want to struggle through what the intent of the group is because we want it to be meaningful. Not just for the individuals participating in it, but meaningful for the organization as a whole. We've also opened up the intercultural development inventory for all staff. So just because of the nature of the work that this requires of our consultant, Tara Ramos, where we're offering up individual consultations, we've really sort of spaced these out and done them in iterations of leadership, DEI group, and now we're opening it up to all staff. As far as their collections go, we're really doing a lot of prep work to move out of Indian Trail and South Hill, because those will be closing down for renovations. So we've been doing some extensive weeding to get those ready, so we're not moving materials that do not need to be moved, you know, based on condition or just they're not needed anymore. And this month's star is really a group star for our staff. Peter Anderson from our community technology department and Sophie Strom and Thomas Erlinger, they really came together and found a way to provide seamless service when a line was cut in the area. That everyone acted really quickly. We didn't lose much access to the technology, and we're able to provide service to folks, which is really important, you know, especially when we've been closed for so long. Being able to continue to have a good experience for customers was really key. And no, it was not our construction crews that cut the line. This was another group in the area. I also shared our opening dates as well as part of the report, because yep, I'm going to keep doing it. I don't want anyone to lose sight of it. Also, Amanda has sent out invitations the day prior to those opening dates when we're planning on having invite-only ceremonies to kick off that opening. We want to kind of separate that and just kind of create the safe space that we need to do that. Budget process, as Nicole had mentioned, is also starting to kick off for City of Spokane. It's going to be a little bit different this year. We don't have an idea of what the deadlines are at this point. And I just heard from Brenda with the Friends that we now have bookcases up at South Hill and Indian Trail with items that people can purchase from the Friends. So we've been sort of putting that on pause for a bit, just because we were unsure, you know, are we going to be staying open to the public? What's that capacity going to look like? But we've got our routine down, and the Friends felt comfortable offering that up. So that is new as of today, Indian Trail and South Hill, and we'll be adding it to all the other locations except for STA and Northtown as well in the coming week or so. We were expecting to have the city administrator pop into this meeting and introduce himself and say hello. That would be the first time, to my knowledge, of anyone from the City of Spokane, mayor's office or administration coming over and saying hello. So he couldn't make it to this one. He's going to be joining us in June, but I just did want to recognize that, you know, there was that effort of outreach and something came up that he couldn't avoid. So hopefully in June, we'll get to introduce him and you'll get to say hello. And you know, we'll hear from him about what his goals are for the city. Any questions? Oh, I should also mention, we also, you know, it's become so routine. I submit a report for the trustees, and then the governor comes out with a new directive. I think it's a weird power that I have. I don't know. Or maybe I shouldn't feel like, you know, be so self-centered about that. But it did happen again this month. And just wanted to, mention to the board that we have changed our stance based on the CDC guidelines and based on the governor's order. We're moving towards masks being optional for vaccinated staff and public. And we're operating on a trust system with this because there is no infrastructure in place to really check this. We have been really fortunate over the past 4 months in the library that we have had 0 cases of COVID with our staff. We hope to continue that, and we'll continue to monitor that. We want to be a safe place for both the staff and public. We just didn't feel it was very fair to our frontline staff to have to enforce something that had no teeth, either with a local guidance directive, state guidance, or federal guidance. So, basically, agree with it or not, that's where we're at. And we're just going to expect people to be honest, and hopefully that that will work for us and the community, and hopefully we continue to see the cases in the community on the decline. Any questions?
I have a question. Are we planning on moving out of Northtown in conjunction with the reopening of Shadle? Is that's still the plan that's on our plan? Okay.
We, as far as there was some interest from City Council to keep that. Basically, one City Council member that wanted us to explore keeping that open. We gave an estimate about how much that would be. We haven't heard, that we were getting additional funding, and to be honest, the usage really hasn't been there. I don't think it's actually been given a fair shot though either, just because, hey, we had a pandemic.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense for us to commit that money at this point.
And
Jim, I saw you.
Questions about the kiosks. Are they approximately the same size as the one we have? Are they about, do they look similar? And
I believe they're a smaller footprint. I'll invite Paul to verify that, since he's been scoping out the spaces, and I really haven't looked at the size in probably 8 months.
They're a bit smaller than the normal one that we have now. The other thing that's very good is they're all weather. They can be set up to where they don't need a big tent or covering over them, and so that's quite good. And the dialogue is, I'd be glad to send some technical specifications so you can at least see a picture of it.
The one we have is really large, and I just wanted to, it's definitely larger than a red box.
I would say it's about 75% of that space at that length.
The other question I had, Andrew, is when we added that to the bond issue, we were specifically thinking of Northeast Spokane as an area that was, farther away from the branches than anywhere else, and that's one of the and I just don't I don't really know where those locations are that you mentioned. Are some of them in Northeast Spokane?
Yeah, so Shiloh Hills definitely fits that bill. That's in the very top sort of northeast area. Council member Fagan at the time of the bond, that's an area that he was advocating for. And their neighborhood council has been consistently vocal that they would like a presence. So we're trying to make that happen. And hopefully we can report on some positive news in the coming months. And I would say the Foothills Drive Nevada space fits that criteria as well. There's a lot of stuff going on in that area too, which increases the desirability to put a station in there as well.
That's in the library desert too. Shiloh Dietz has given us great information that Foothills Drive in Nevada is at the Logan neighborhood. And that's right in an area, kind of a crease that we don't have a lot of good library coverage, the distance alone. So.
All right, any other questions for Andrew? Okay, so next on our agenda is the council liaison report, although I didn't see that Kate has joined us today. Okay, so we'll move on from that. Then the communications report, Amanda.
Hey, hi everyone. It's nice to see you. And thank you, Andrew, for all those really kind words. I didn't expect that, so thank you. So this month's communication and marketing highlights include Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We've been featuring this on our website, and the events and book lists that staff have prepared were featured in the Spokesman Review, and they're getting a lot of good exposure on our social media. I've seen them getting shared a lot. Remelisa Culleton she's an artist, a local artist, and she'll be doing a Meet the Artist virtual event for AAPI Heritage Month tomorrow at 4 p.m. You can still register for that on Zoom. And then tonight at 6:30, if you're not done with Zooming, you can hop on a Zoom program with Dr. Melissa Bedford from EW on how to choose AAPI children's books and other diverse children's books to read to your children. So 2 upcoming programs that look really interesting. As Andrew mentioned, we also opened our call for artists in residency at the Hive this month. Those opened at the beginning of May, and the deadline for those applications is June 3rd. Eva Silverstone's been doing a great job looking at all of, this is kind of cutting edge, but there are a few other libraries out there that have done similar artist programs, meeting with people across the country to kind of develop our own artist in residency program. So excited to see those applications coming in. I think we have at least more than 10 now. I'm sure we'll get a great slate of candidates by the time June 3rd rolls around. We also just put the finishing touches on our summer reading magazines. That's something we're doing new this summer because of all the uncertainties about COVID and summer reading programs. Katie Ricard came up with the idea to do a summer reading magazine, and you'll hear more about that at the next meeting, but those are at the printer as we speak, and so they'll be ready in mid-June for students and youth around the city to enjoy. I've also been really focusing on increasing the internal communication. As it's obviously evident in these meetings, there's just a lot going on, from changes in COVID policy changes to the DEI work we're doing and to all the opening of new branches. So increasing the frequency of communication internally has really been a focus of mine, both in regular posting on our intranet, as well as more frequent staff-wide emails, just to make sure everyone knows what's going on. Because right now, I think we all know it's harder than ever to make sure that communication is happening, since we're not seeing anyone in person still. So really dialing that up as well and focusing on that as well. So on the social media front, we saw a 2% increase in engagement on Facebook, driven by a question. These question posts are often very popular. It was, what book are you reading this week? And a lot of people like to respond to those. And if you're ever wondering what to read next, it's always really inspiring to read through all those comments if you're in a reading slump. A lot of engagements on those posts. On Instagram, our top post, as usual, was a book face, and Twitter saw an increase of 25% increase in engagement, which was really exciting to see. And a lot of that interest and engagement is on the posts about our Hive residency and also reopening plans. So seeing some of our followers really tracking us on some of those topics. And our YouTube subscribers went up by 27 followers. So that was kind of a big jump that was nice to see. So everybody's not done with YouTube yet. So that's good. And then our earned media also saw an uptick in coverage because of all the activities we have going on right now, including articles about the Hive and Asian American Heritage Month. And Andrew was also featured in the Library Journal on an article about restorative justice in libraries and our community court program. Let's see. And that concludes my report for today. Do you have any questions?
All right, looks like there aren't any. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to new business. We have the capital bond funds amendment to the SBL and Parks Department MOU. Andrew?
Yep. So this is a request to execute an amendment to increase the value of the MOU that we executed last February, I believe, February 2020. This is an agreement between city parks to address the remediation of the tennis courts in which we're putting the Liberty Park Library in place of. The original amendment was for the amount of $175,000. But due to COVID, parks really, they weren't able to do the community engagement that they needed to build around their master plan. And as we're getting closer to Liberty Park opening and finishing up construction of that project, it doesn't make sense for us to own that building of whatever they end up deciding. So it's kind of addressing two things. One, it's giving the ownership of that project back to parks, and the other is increasing the value of the MOU to by $50,000 to $225,000. This will save us a lot of time, probably particularly Penny in the background, doing a lot of the public works and contractual stuff. And quite frankly, we don't have much expertise in building recreational or playground equipment. This will actually align with where the library wanted to head with the MOU, but we ended up agreeing with Parks to head the project originally, just to be a good partner. So there's a lot of positives in our view about this MOU change, and it's we're just asking for the board approval to add the $50,000 to the agreement.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to approve the amendment to increase the value of the MOU from 175 to 225. And
So moved.
do I have a second?
Yes, second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, and next we have the operations update from Paul.
And before we let Paul go into his report, I just wanted to give the board a heads up that we're going to attempt to bring more of our staff in front of the board to give them more of an idea of what they're doing. You'll recall we used to do that with our community engagement managers and our customer experience managers. We did a pretty significant reorganization in leadership back in January of this year after Ellen left. So we really want to re-engage and give the board a sense of how things are going and get a better picture of who these leaders are in the organization. So with that, I turn it over to Paul.
Thank you. Sorry, the light just changed in my office. The sunlight's coming through, so I'll be a little bit in the shade every once in a while. So I'm going to share my screen if I can, and we're going to talk about operations. So just a second. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so the topic today is our operations side. The idea of this restructuring is we had 3 community engagement managers, and Karis asked us to look at restructuring. And so Jason Johnson and I, we sat down and worked with Karis, and I was asked to take over the actual branch operations and the staff and the personnel that face basically the public. And so the operations team role as it's evolved is at the start of the year in January, we went through and I got acquainted with 3 additional CXMs, the people that run our branches, our branch managers. And so the branches and the outreach function are the retail face of Spokane Public Library. We're where the public meets library services. And so just to give a quick overview of the staff involved, I work with 6 customer experience managers, CXMs, who are branch managers. I also have reporting up through them as 37 public service staff, library assistants all the way to pages. And they're the ones who work to provide direct public service. And I report directly to Karis O'Malley. So what I wanted to do is give just a couple slides to indicate what our branch is, what our branch visions are, and what we wanted to do is kind of project the branches, the public service into the future. And so the first thing that we wanted to stress as a team is that we want to create the branches, the new programs, the new buildings that we're going to be opening up, that we'd like to create it as a safe space. We're going to be introducing something called compassionate security as our mantra as a team. And what that is thinking about security plus thinking about the individuals that might need our help or our concern. So we're going to be doing a lot of staff training and role playing to build confidence. And this is built around some things that Jordan Hilker on our staff at Shadle has created a good way of having our staff in a compassionate way work with folks who need help in the system. We've also been talking quite a bit and working over the last year and a half about health and safety for both the public and the staff. And this was really tested during the time of COVID. So I'm really proud of how reactive our staff has been, and especially the branch managers in helping the staff work through some of the different methods of working with the public. So we do have unique challenges for safety and security at Hilliard and the Hive and Central. Now Hilliard is going to be combining middle school students with the general public. So we're going to stay very close to Spokane Public Schools and what they need to provide a good experience for everyone there. And at the Hive, we're going to be mixing students, Spokane virtual learning, and also the artists and the creators that are there. So we're thinking about that challenge. And at the Central branch, we're going to have the largest number of computers of any branch in our first floor. And it's going to be a real center of folks using some of our electronic offerings. So we want to make sure that we're having a good experience there as well. So we plan to have security plus restorative justice practices. We've been looking at that quite closely. Andrew was honored for that in a recent Library Journal magazine. But we'd like to affirm civil behavior as well. So everyone, from families all the way to folks who need a safe space each day, to come and have a good positive experience at the library. So now, one thing I'm going to be evolving or creating is in its initial concept phase. It's called the Welcome Team. And that is basically a 3-person team formed of security staff and our library staff members, and also graduate students in various social service, counseling, and other kind of disciplines that we might be able to provide an internship for basically help to work with our folks that are coming daily into the library, and also create just a good environment, like a welcoming, and also a concern about people's needs and their social needs as well. So second thing is we envision libraries as a learning platform. We want to provide technology and Wi-Fi, and we want to really study what branch needs what. And that means a lot of demographic analysis. We work very closely each week with Shiloh, and we really appreciate her and our IT team to give us that information. The other things that are very concerning to us are computer literacy and what I call library hesitancy in some of our branches where perhaps the college education isn't as prevalent amongst the local population. People are fairly shy about actually asking for services or feeling facile or ability to use information. So we're going to be really looking at that and how to introduce the library to a wider circle of folks. And one thing that's kind of the hidden feature is we do a lot of testing and proctoring now at our branches before we closed for online degrees across the country. So there's a lot of information there as well that we'd like to help the general public understand that we would assist in that area. Finally, we're going to be integrating with Spokane Virtual Learning Program, especially at Shadle and the Hive, and they're going to be basically coexisting with us at the Shadle branch. So it's going to be an exciting time there too. Now, as a manager of a group, one of the largest groups in the office, I'd like to make sure that we build a model workforce. And that means that we would build DEI into each one of our human resources practices. I work very closely with Alan Wagner, and he's part of our weekly calls with the CXMs, the branch managers. And we want to make sure that we study those practices, and when we hire new staff that we're thinking about equity and inclusion as well. Another thing that I've been able to do very well with our CXMs is sharing staff and workloads, balancing the workload across each branch. And people have been quite responsive, but that's something that's going to be a goal for us. Then one of the hearts of my mission for the last year has been staff development. We've created a future leader and new manager training. Karis envisioned it as kind of like the People's University for the Spokane Public Library. And we've had 25 different staff members take part in future leader training last year. And this year we've introduced something new for new managers. So they get a chance to have like a weekly seminar on how to manage effectively. And we're also using the lean system led by Sally Chilson, working with our branch managers as well. One thing that's really been a great standard for our staff is that our local branch managers are buying into and helping me create operations and customer service. Twice weekly calls, we go over training, we go over just kind of like the current events in the library. So we share needs, we share concerns, we also share solutions as well. Then one of the last two things is being a community connector for a branch. We recognize that with our new spaces, this is going to be incredibly important that the community at large feels comfortable coming in and using our facilities. And so outreach, which is run by Thomas Herlinger there at Eastside, we have 104 sites a month that he serves. And we've begun in the last year, started by Karen Nielsen, to actually serve Meals on Wheels. And we're up to about 10% of all Meals on Wheels recipients in the city are part of they use the library services at the same time. Daycares, retirement homes, we also work with those areas as well. So citing of the 24/7 kiosks, I've been using a lot of the city demographics and the library usage data to cite those. And we envision each branch as a community learning center, kind of a crossroads of information. And we are very actively supporting local initiatives, such as food distribution by Second Harvest, city dump passes from the city, student bus passes, even medication take-back programs and broadband access programs. So we are definitely what I would call information ambassadors, which may be a new term that marketing communications may give to our staff. And I think it's a great way to introduce what we do. And the last thing is we want to be seen as a contributor to Spokane's quality of life. Each branch is encouraged to build a vision to serve neighborhoods, such as Hilliard, for example, wants very much to be a job and career center for people in the northeastern section of the city. And we've already had folks like Providence, Sacred Heart, and Amazon asked if they could bring some jobs programs into the library to basically seek new personnel, but also to educate people about careers. And so we're looking forward to that very much. We also are going to take a deep look at folks not using SPL services. How can we help them? How can we overcome hesitancy to use the library, largely because people aren't used to asking questions and working with their own information? New arrivals to Spokane is another thing we'll be working on. We want to extend a welcome. Everybody who has a new library card, we will have a plan to give them a tour and a real sense of the wholeness of the branches, what's offered at each one of the branch. And then finally, focusing with Mark Pond on the jobs, careers, and the economic growth. So that's a quick look at what we're doing as a group, and I'm very proud to lead this group, and I'm excited to see the future of the library. Thanks.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Paul. Does anybody have any questions for Paul?
I do have one question. Paul, do we offer any services to people who are trying to fill out any kind of immigration paperwork, green card paperwork, or
No, but
any of that?
No, but it would be an excellent idea. I have direct experience. My daughter is a paralegal in Chicago. She does that all the time. So I have an expert that can help us design that. But the users of the computer, can everybody see it okay? I keep getting messages here. The users of our computers right now, it's kind of heartbreaking sometimes. People are using our computers for legal work, for family law issues, and for employment. And so we're going to be studying how to give more computer time to people. That's something that we're going to be looking at, is more computers, more time on each computer as well. So citizenship, I notice that other cities do that quite a bit. So I think we could add that as a service.
I just, my brother and his husband just moved here from Turkey, and I just was hoping my brother-in-law fill out his green card application. And I don't know, first of all, how folks who, without help, and most of the time it's expensive help, are able to do that on their own, especially if they don't have a firm grasp of the language. I was shocked by the process, and I was thinking that it would be a wonderful thing for the library to be able to help people in their path to citizenship and their path to legal work. If we could have be a resource in some way for that, because it's quite a process.
Excellent. I think we can do that. There are a number of relief organizations in Spokane we can partner with as well.
That's great. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Any other questions for Paul? All right. Thank you very much, Paul. That was very informative about the new structure for operations. I'm excited about your goals for the future.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any additional agenda items or changes at this point? All right. Hearing none. Were any public comments received that we need to address at the meeting?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, June 15th. And I don't believe we have an executive session today.
Correct.
Okay. So with that, we are ready to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lara. Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
Have a good night.
See y'all later.